All right, so you're wrestling with this question, is government the problem or the solution?
Big question.
Yeah, and you've handed me a stack of Plato's Republic to try to get to the bottom of this. Now, Plato was grappling with this back in ancient Greece,
Yeah.
and his ideas might surprise you.
He's not giving us a simple yes or no.
No.
But he really dives deep into what a just society looks like.
Right.
And I think that'll give us some clues about the role of government.
I think so too, and it's fascinating to me that before he even talks about government,
Yeah,
Plato tackles the concept of justice itself.
that's right.
He just throws us right into the middle of this, like,
Heated debate.
intense. Yeah.
The ancient Greeks did not mess around when it came to arguing.
No, they did not. It's like listening in on the most intense philosophy seminar ever.
It really is.
And it all starts with this deceptively simple question. What is justice?
Yeah.
And we meet this guy, Cephalus,
Cephalus, yeah.
who, being like a well-off older gentleman, thinks it's all about being honest and paying your debts.
Right. It seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, on the surface.
Yeah.
But of course, Plato loves to poke holes in these simple answers.
Of course he does. That's what he does.
And so we have Cephalus' son, Polemarchus, who throws a wrench in the works
Yeah.
with this thought-provoking example. What if you owe a weapon to someone, but they've gone completely mad?
Right?
Should you still return it?
Good question.
Suddenly it's not so clear-cut, is it?
No, not at all.
Context matters, and blindly following rules
Mm-hmm.
can lead to some pretty messed up outcomes.
For sure.
And then enter Thrasymachus.
Yeah.
This guy basically drops a philosophical bombshell
He does.
by just coming out and saying might makes right.
Might makes right.
You know? Thrasymachus is like the ultimate cynic.
Yeah.
He's arguing that justice is whatever the strongest party decides it is.
The people in power.
Usually, yeah, no universal right or wrong, just raw power dynamics.
Whoa, talk about a bleak outlook.
It's pretty bleak.
But this is where Socrates,
Yeah.
always the sharp mind.
Sharp as a tack,
Yeah.
steps in and says, well, even powerful rulers can make mistakes.
Right.
They might think they're acting in their best interest,
Mm-hmm.
but they could be totally wrong.
Absolutely. And that sets the stage for Plato to explore if there's a deeper, more universal form of justice.
Yeah.
That isn't just about who's holding the reins at any given moment.
Right. So before we even get to whether government is the problem,
Yeah.
we're already questioning what a just system, A and Y system, would even look like.
Exactly. And this is where Plato takes us on this journey into how societies even form in the first place.
Okay.
He argues it's not some power grab,
Okay.
but a natural progression out of necessity.
Makes sense.
Humans have basic needs: food, shelter, clothes. We can't do it all alone.
Nope.
So we start specializing,
Right.
we start relying on each other.
It's like the original division of labor.
It is. You got your farmers, your builders, your weavers,
Yeah.
everyone playing their role to create a functioning society.
Right. And it sounds like Plato is saying that this is where government starts to make sense.
This is exactly where he's going with this.
We need some kind of structure to make it all work.
We do. And he points out how this seemingly simple setup
Yeah.
quickly gets complex.
I bet.
Yeah, we need to trade with other communities,
Of course.
which leads to imports, exports, money,
Mm-hmm.
even more specialized roles.
Right.
It all snowballs, creating this web of interdependence.
Right.
And to manage this growing complexity, some form of governing structure
Yeah.
becomes essential.
So even at this early stage, Plato's hinting that, like, the seeds of government
Yeah.
aren't planted by some lust for power, but by the practical necessities of a functioning society.
That's a great point.
That's pretty crucial to your question about whether government is inherently the problem.
It is, but then Plato throws us a curveball.
Okay.
He's all about truth,
Okay.
but he introduces this idea of the noble lie.
Uh-oh.
It's controversial, but it's key to understanding his ideal state.
Uh-huh.
He uses this analogy of a doctor prescribing medicine.
Oh.
Sometimes a little falsehood
Yeah.
might be necessary for the overall well-being of the patient.
Hold on. Is Plato actually saying it's okay for the government to lie to its citizens?
He is, but there's a very specific context.
All right.
This medicine of lies,
Yeah.
according to Plato,
Yeah.
is only permissible for the state.
Okay.
And even then, only for those in charge.
Okay.
Those he calls the guardians.
The guardians, all right.
They're the ones who decide what's best for society.
Okay.
And in very rare cases,
Yeah.
a strategic untruth might be needed to achieve that.
So it's not about like everyday fibbing,
No.
but more like a carefully calculated
Mm-hmm.
myth or a story that serves a larger purpose.
Precisely.
Okay.
Almost like a foundation myth
Yeah.
that holds the society together.
Right.
And this brings us to the myth of metals, which is one of Plato's most striking ideas.
Okay. The myth of metals.
He suggests that people are born with different natures, represented by gold, silver, bronze, and iron.
Okay. I'm seeing where this is going.
And this determines their role in society.
Right. So the gold-souled.
The gold-souled are fit to rule.
Okay.
Silver are the auxiliaries.
Auxiliaries. Okay.
And so on.
So we've got this idea of predetermined social roles.
We do, but
Yeah.
even here,
Yeah.
Plato says there can be exceptions.
Okay.
People can move between these classes based on merit.
Interesting.
It's like he's acknowledging the need for structure,
Mm-hmm.
but also allowing for individual talent to shine through.
Right. So it's a complex concept.
Guys.
And it shows how Plato is grappling with this tension between individual potential
Yeah,
and the needs of a well-ordered society.
absolutely.
And this tension, I think, is key to understanding his views on government.
I think so too. And this idea of different natures playing different roles in society feeds directly into how Plato sees those guardians. His ideal rulers being chosen. It's not just about lineage or being born into the right family.
Oh, so you don't just get to be king because
Yeah.
your dad was king.
Nope, they have to prove themselves.
So it's not about like power-hungry individuals grabbing control,
No,
but about finding people who genuinely care about the well-being of everyone
that's right.
and entrusting them with leadership. Sounds pretty idealistic.
It is idealistic, and these guardians go through rigorous testing throughout their lives.
Really? Like what?
Oh, they're faced with all sorts of temptations. They have to withstand both pleasure and pain, all to make sure they remain incorruptible and dedicated to serving the state.
So it's not just anybody who can just walk in and say, hey, I want to be a guardian.
Not at all.
Plato's making a point here. Governing society takes exceptional people
It does.
with like unshakable morals.
Yeah, he sets a pretty high bar.
He does. And this is where we get to one of Plato's most famous ideas, the philosopher king.
The philosopher king, yeah. And the philosopher king embodies everything for Plato believes an ideal ruler should be.
Okay.
Not a tyrant driven by ego, but a lover of truth.
Mm-hmm.
Someone with a mind honed by reason, focused on principles that benefit everyone, not just themselves.
So circling back to your initial question about government, is Plato saying the system itself isn't the problem?
Yes.
Is he saying the real issue is having the wrong people in charge?
He is.
Could a government led by these philosopher kings, these paragons of wisdom and justice,
Yeah.
actually be a force for good?
That's exactly the point he's making. And to drive it home, Plato contrasts his ideal philosopher king
Okay.
with the so-called philosophers of his time, who he saw as more interested in rhetoric and personal gain than actual wisdom.
So the people who were calling themselves philosophers back then,
Yes.
Plato's saying, I don't know about those guys.
Basically, yeah, he's saying don't judge all philosophers
Right.
by the ones who are just playing intellectual games.
He's drawing a line between intellectual showboating
Yeah.
and genuine philosophical wisdom that actually translates into actions
Yes.
that benefit everyone.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's say we buy into this idea of the philosopher king.
Okay.
How do you even create one?
Right.
What kind of education
What kind of education, indeed?
does it take to mold someone into a leader
Yeah.
that's wise and just?
You might assume it's ethics
Mhm.
or law,
Right.
but Plato had a different idea.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
He believed the foundation for good leadership lies in something unexpected, abstract mathematics.
Oh, hold on, math.
Math.
What does staring at triangles have to do with ruling justly?
Right, it seems counterintuitive, but Plato believed that these abstract disciplines train the mind to think logically,
Okay.
to see the underlying patterns and principles that govern reality.
Okay.
It's like lifting the veil of everyday perception to see the true essence of things.
Interesting.
So he's saying if you can understand the elegance of a geometric proof,
Yeah.
you can understand the principles of justice.
It's still a bit abstract for me.
It is abstract. How does this translate into actual governing?
Yeah.
This is where dialectic enters the picture.
Dialectic.
Plato considered this the pinnacle of intellectual development.
Okay.
It's about engaging in reasoned dialogue, asking the right questions,
Right.
and arriving at truth,
Birds below.
careful analysis and argumentation.
So it's not just about having this abstract knowledge,
Right.
but about being able to apply it in the real world
Exactly.
to weigh different perspectives.
Yes.
Have these tough conversations
That's tough conversation.
and ultimately make decisions that benefit everyone.
That's what it's all about.
Plato believed that this combination of mathematical reasoning
Yeah.
and dialectical skill was essential
He was.
for producing rulers who could navigate the complexities of human society
The complex.
while always aiming for the common good.
Always aiming for the common good.
So we're starting to see a clearer picture of Plato's answer to your question.
Yes.
It's not about wiping out government.
It's not.
It's about radically transforming it.
radically transforming it.
About putting the right kind of people equipped with the right kind of knowledge and skills in charge.
That's right. And that brings us to what happens when societies don't have those philosopher kings at the helm.
Oh.
Plato lays out 4 flawed forms of government,
4. Okay.
each with its own corresponding character type. It's like a cautionary tale
Okay.
about what happens when we stray from the ideal.
Okay, let's break these down, these imperfect forms of government.
Let's do it.
What's the first one on Plato's list?
He calls it timocracy,
Democracy.
a system where honor and military strengths are valued above everything else. Think of Sparta
Okay.
with its warrior culture
Yeah.
and emphasis on discipline.
Right.
The timocratic individual is ambitious,
Okay.
always seeking recognition and glory.
So it sounds like a society where everyone's trying to be a hero.
Yeah, kind of.
It's not inherently bad,
No.
but maybe it lacks that deeper philosophical grounding
Right.
that Plato sees as so crucial for real justice.
Exactly.
What's the next step down on this slippery slope of government?
Timocracy, according to Plato,
Yeah.
eventually crumbles into oligarchy,
Oligarch.
where the wealthy few call the shots,
Oh, so the super rich
the super rich.
get to decide everything.
They do. The endless hunger for wealth takes over,
Yeah.
and the state becomes all about accumulating riches,
Okay.
often at the cost of the common good.
I bet Plato has some pretty harsh words for this system.
He definitely sees it as a perversion of justice.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like a fan of unchecked greed.
Not at all in an oligarchy. Money talks and everything else walks.
Oof.
The pursuit of wealth overshadows any concern for virtue
Yeah.
or the well-being of those who aren't part of the elite.
Right.
Plato describes the oligarchic individual as miserly,
Okay.
always scheming,
Uh,
and ultimately enslaved to their own desire for more.
It's the classic story of wealth corrupting the soul.
It is.
So how does this play out on a societal level?
Well,
What happens when the gap between the haves and the have-nots becomes too wide?
Plato suggests this inequality creates a breeding ground for resentment,
That makes sense.
leading to revolution.
Oh,
The people who have been pushed to the margins, seeing the excesses of the wealthy few. Yeah.
rise up and overthrow the oligarchy.
Makes sense. And what emerges from this upheaval?
Democracy.
Democracy. You'd think that's where Plato would finally give a nod of approval.
You would think so.
Right. It's the system that we often celebrate as like the ideal.
Right. But Plato being Plato,
Of course.
he has some surprising things to say about democracy, too.
Really?
He does, while he recognizes the allure of freedom and equality
Mm-hmm.
that democracy offers,
Yeah.
he sees it as inherently unstable.
Why would he have a problem with democracy?
Well, in Plato's view,
Okay.
democracy is vulnerable to mob rule,
Okay.
where uninformed opinions can sway decisions.
Interesting.
And the pursuit of individual desires
Yeah.
can trump any sense of collective good. He paints a picture of the democratic individual
Yeah.
as someone who's constantly flitting between different pursuits and pleasures,
Okay.
lacking any real direction or commitment to higher principles.
It's interesting that he focuses on this lack of direction, this almost scattered pursuit of individual wants.
As a weakness of democracy,
Yeah.
it seems to tie back to his earlier emphasis on reason
Right.
and a well-ordered soul as the foundation for a just individual,
Exactly.
and by extension, a just society.
Exactly. For Plato,
Yeah.
this descent from timocracy to oligarchy to democracy ultimately bottoms out in the worst form of government, tyranny.
Tyranny, the rule of one person with absolute power.
The rule of the ones.
Sounds like the ultimate nightmare scenario.
It is the tyrant, in Plato's view,
Mm-hmm.
is driven by unrestrained desires, consumed by paranoia and fear, and always seeking to hold on to power through manipulation and brute force.
It sounds terrifying.
It's a pretty bleak picture. They
Yeah.
embody everything Plato considers unjust and destructive to
Yeah.
both individuals and society as a whole.
So he's laid out this whole spectrum of governments,
A whole spectrum.
from his ideal republic,
Yeah.
led by philosopher kings,
Led by philosopher kings.
all the way down to the tyrannical state,
All right.
ruled by unchecked desires.
That's right. Its stark warning about how badly things can go wrong when the wrong principles are in charge.
Yeah. So we go back to your question, is government the problem?
Yes.
Plato would probably say no. The problem is the lack of people who embody justice and wisdom,
Right.
the lack of leaders who are willing to put the needs of everyone ahead of their own.
It's not the system itself.
Yeah.
It's the people running it.
He goes even further
He does.
and argues that a just state is a reflection of a just individual.
Oh, that's interesting.
So if we want a society that works,
Mm-hmm.
we have to start by cultivating justice within ourselves.
He's saying it's an inside job.
It's an inside job.
Yeah.
So it's not just about electing the right leaders.
No.
It's about each of us becoming the kind of citizen
Yeah.
who contributes to a just and harmonious society. That's a big ask.
It is, but Plato doesn't shy away from tough challenges.
He doesn't.
He dives right into what it means to cultivate a just soul.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, he breaks down the soul itself into 3 parts. Okay.
Reason, spirit, and desire.
It's like that chariot analogy he uses.
The chariot analogy, the charioteer represents reason,
Yeah.
trying to control the 2 horses of spirit and desire.
Right. Trying to keep them going in the right direction.
Exactly. And for Plato, a just individual,
Yeah.
and by extension, a just society,
Mm-hmm.
is one where reason holds the reins.
So reason's got to be in control.
Reason's in control. It's about guiding our passions and desires
Yeah.
toward what's truly good for ourselves
Okay.
and for others.
So it's not about denying our desires or emotions,
Right.
but about making sure they're aligned with wisdom and an understanding of what contributes to the well-being of the whole community.
A delicate balance.
Right. And this is where his ideas on education come back into play.
They do?
Remember those future philosopher kings training in mathematics and dialectic?
Yes.
Well, Plato believed that a similar kind of education,
Yes.
adjusted for different roles in society,
Right.
was crucial for everyone. Absolutely. He saw education as the key
Yeah.
to developing those virtues that make a just and flourishing state possible.
So it's about creating a society where everyone,
Yeah.
from the leaders to those being led,
Everywhere.
has the knowledge and skills to make wise choices,
That's the goal.
to act justly, and to play their part in the common good.
That's a beautiful vision.
It is, and it brings us back to the importance of truth.
Oh, yes, truth.
Remember that noble lie we discussed earlier?
Noble lie.
While Plato acknowledges that there might be rare instances
Yeah.
where a bit of deception is necessary.
Yeah, like in that doctor-patient analogy.
Right. He's very clear that this is an exception.
It is.
The foundation of a just society.
Yeah.
He argues rests on truth
True.
and a commitment to seeking knowledge.
Seeking knowledge, yes. He's essentially saying a society built on lies and deception can't truly prosper.
It can't last.
It can't last.
So it's not enough to just have any government.
Yeah.
We have to have a government that's rooted in truth
Rooted in truth.
and a genuine desire to serve the people.
That's the key. And this leads us to a fascinating part of Plato's Republic,
Okay.
his discussion of different kinds of pleasure.
Different kinds of pleasure.
He argues that there are pleasures associated with each part of the soul.
Okay. So reason, spirit, and desire.
Exactly.
So we've got pleasures of the mind,
Yes.
pleasures of the heart,
Uh-huh.
and I guess those more basic instinctual pleasures,
You got it.
like enjoying a good meal or a beautiful sunset,
Yes.
versus the satisfaction of solving a complex problem
Mm-hmm.
or understanding a profound idea.
Those are different kinds of pleasure, for sure.
Yeah.
And Plato argues that the pleasures of reason,
Okay.
the ones that come from seeking knowledge,
Yeah.
pursuing truth, contemplating those eternal forms,
Those are high-level pleasures.
they are.
Right.
He sees those as the purest
Okay.
and most enduring.
Okay, and he contrasts them with,
He contrasts them with the pleasures of desire,
okay, more basic ones.
the ones driven by bodily appetites, material possessions,
Yeah.
which he sees as fleeting
Yeah.
and ultimately unsatisfying.
He's not saying we should all become emotionless robots, is he?
He's not saying that.
But he is suggesting that lasting happiness comes from something deeper
It does.
than just chasing those fleeting desires.
Right. He's saying that a society obsessed with indulging those lower pleasures
Yeah.
will end up in chaos and injustice
Yeah.
because those desires are insatiable.
They never end.
They never end. There's always going to be another thing to acquire, another craving to satisfy.
Right.
If that's what drives society, you'll never reach true happiness or stability.
It's like that saying, you can't fill a hole in your soul with material things.
Exactly. Plato suggests that true happiness,
Yeah.
both for individuals and for society as a whole, lies in pursuing those higher pleasures, the ones associated with reason and a well-ordered soul.
So we've got this intricate connection
We do.
between individual fulfillment, the role of government, the importance of education, and even the kinds of pleasures we pursue.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. It's a lot to take in.
I guess.
But it seems like we're getting a more nuanced and insightful response
I think so.
to your question about whether government is inherently the problem.
And this leads to another point.
Okay.
Plato acknowledges that even his ideal republic, ruled by philosopher kings,
Okay.
isn't immune to decay.
Oh, no.
He describes a cycle of degeneration,
Oh, no.
beginning with a timocracy,
Right.
then descending through oligarchy and democracy,
Right.
finally ending in tyranny.
So even the best systems can go bad.
They can?
What does he think causes this decline, even in a supposedly perfect state?
He attributes it to several factors: a gradual erosion of those virtues
Right.
that uphold a just society, a decline in education, even a misunderstanding of those principles that the Republic was founded on.
Interesting.
Even with the wisest rulers,
Yeah.
maintaining a just and flourishing state is an ongoing battle.
It's a constant struggle.
It is a constant struggle. It's a reminder that building a just society isn't a one-time achievement.
Right.
It's a constant process.
It's a journey.
It's a journey that demands vigilance,
Yeah.
a commitment to education, and a willingness to adapt and make changes as needed.
We've got to stay flexible.
We do, and that's where Plato's ideas about community
Yeah.
become especially relevant.
Okay.
He argues that a just society needs a strong sense of unity,
Okay.
a shared commitment to the common good.
This is where it gets really controversial.
This is where it gets controversial.
With his ideas about abolishing private property
Yeah.
and the traditional family structure.
Yes. Those are some of the most radical and debated aspects of Plato's Republic.
Wow.
He proposes that the guardians, his ruling class, should live communally, sharing everything, including wives and children.
Okay, I can already imagine the pushback.
I can too.
It sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It does sound pretty extreme.
Why would Plato propose something so extreme?
Well, he believed that private property and family ties create divisions
Okay.
and fuel self-interest.
I see.
He saw them as obstacles to true unity and a genuine dedication to the common good.
So he was trying to eliminate anything that would cause division.
That's right. By abolishing these institutions,
Okay.
he hoped to create a society where the guardians would be completely devoted to the state
Wow.
and its well-being.
That's a pretty bold idea.
It is definitely a provocative idea,
Yeah.
and it's sparked a lot of debate over the centuries.
I can imagine.
I think it's important to understand where he's coming from,
Yeah.
even if we ultimately disagree with his conclusions.
Right.
He's making a point about the level of unity and selflessness
Okay.
that might be needed to create a truly just society.
Right. So whether that's achievable
Yeah.
or even desirable is
Yeah.
another question entirely.
Right, and whether or not we agree with his specific proposals,
Yeah.
his exploration of these ideas forces us to confront some big questions.
Like what?
About the nature of community,
Okay.
the tension between individual desires
Yeah.
and the common good,
Right.
and the challenges of building a society where everyone feels a genuine sense of belonging
Right.
and shared purpose.
So we've explored Plato's ideas on justice, the pitfalls of different forms of government, the power of education, the complexities of the human soul,
It's a lot.
and even his radical vision of a communal society. It's been quite a journey through the Republic.
It has. And through all of this, I think we're getting a much richer understanding of your original question: is government inherently the problem?
Plato definitely doesn't give us a simple answer.
No.
But it seems like he's pushing us to think more deeply about the purpose of government, what a just society looks like, and the roles we all play in creating a world
Yes.
where justice and the common good can flourish.
He is. And one more key piece of Plato's Republic
Okay.
that I think we need to unpack is his stance on imitation.
Okay.
Imitation and how it fits or doesn't fit into his vision of an ideal state.
Ah, yes. This is where Plato basically kicks the poets,
The poets.
those masters of storytelling and imitation, out of his Republic.
Out they go.
I remember being pretty shocked by that when I first read it. It seems so anti-art, anti-creativity.
It's definitely one of his most controversial ideas.
It is.
To really grasp it, I think we need to put on our Plato vision goggles
Plato vision goggle.
and see the world through his philosophical lens.
Right.
Remember, his whole project in the Republic
Yeah.
is to build a society based on reason,
Right.
truth, and the pursuit of what's truly good.
Okay, so remind me.
Yeah.
How does poetry threaten that project?
Well,
Why is imitation such a big deal for Plato?
he argues that imitation, whether it's in poetry or drama or even painting,
Mm-hmm.
deals with appearances,
Okay.
not reality.
Not reality.
It creates copies of things.
Yeah.
And those copies take us further away from the truth,
Okay.
from those eternal forms that Plato sees as the foundation of all knowledge.
So it's almost like a shadow of a shadow,
It is like a shadow of a shadow.
right? The artist imitates something real,
Yeah.
and then we experience that imitation, and it's like moving us even further away from the true essence of things.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Plato worries that this focus on imitation
Yeah.
can pull us away from pursuing true knowledge
Okay.
and lead us toward those less fulfilling pleasures that we talked about earlier.
Right. So the pleasures of like the senses and the body and all that.
Exactly. He argues that poetry especially
Yeah.
often tugs at our heartstrings, not our intellect.
So appealing to our emotions.
Appealing to our emotions, stirring up emotions that can cloud our judgment and steer us off course.
So it's like he's saying, enjoy the story, but don't mistake it for ultimate truth.
Right.
Don't let it dictate your actions.
Yes. It's almost as if he's anticipating our modern anxieties about how media and entertainment shape our perceptions and behavior.
That's a really good point.
Yes, and this brings us back to Plato's concept of the tripartite soul.
Okay. Reason, spirit, desire.
He sees imitation as mainly appealing to our desires and emotions, potentially weakening the rule of reason.
So art's not inherently bad,
No.
but it can be misused.
It can become a tool for manipulation, for whipping up passions that lead us to make bad decisions.
Right. So it's really about being aware of how art and stories and all of that affects us.
Yes, that's a key point. Plato doesn't want to eliminate beauty or emotional expression from human life,
Right.
but he believes they need to be guided and shaped by reason.
Okay. So they need to be in service of reason.
Yes, in his ideal state, art and poetry would serve a higher purpose, uplifting the soul, inspiring virtue, and reinforcing those principles that contribute to a just and harmonious society.
So it's not about art for art's sake, but art in service of something greater.
That's right.
Art that helps us build a better world.
Exactly. And this is an important insight that we can apply even today.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a call to be more discerning consumers of art and entertainment,
Yeah.
to be aware of how they're affecting us,
Mm.
and to ensure they're ultimately helping us move toward truth,
Right.
wisdom, and a just society.
It's about being intentional about the art that we consume.
Absolutely.
Well, we've covered so much in this deep dive into Plato's Republic.
We have.
We've wrestled with the meaning of justice, compared different forms of government, explored the role of education,
We did all that.
tackled Plato's radical ideas about communal living and the place of art in a just society. I think we've gained some real insight into your question about the role of government in our lives.
And while Plato's vision might seem idealistic, even utopian at times,
Yeah.
his observations about human nature, the challenges of power, and the importance of seeking truth are as relevant today as they were over 2,000 years ago.
I think that's right. And it's really a testament to his work that we're still talking about it,
It is.
thousands of years later.
Thousands of years later.
Plato's work reminds us that building a just and flourishing society is a continuous process.
It is.
It requires critical thinking, open dialogue, and a commitment to those enduring principles of wisdom, justice, and the common good
It's a challenge.
that each generation has to grapple with.
And it seems like we're still grappling with it.
We are still grappling with it.
Well said. And I think Plato, with his deep faith in the power of reason and conversation,
Yes.
would be delighted to know that we're still engaging with these questions, still seeking those answers.
I think
That can help us create a better world.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Plato's Republic. We hope you've enjoyed exploring these timeless ideas with us.